for another installment of Trades Lady Happy Hour. Cheers to getting halfway through the week. I am super excited this week to be joined by Zena Foster. She is a master motorcycle technician. She was with BMW for a long time. She's been out in Phoenix recently and has been helping out a ton on the Volvo build. And she's just a really fantastic woman. She's incredibly talented. We were talking the other day about the rarity of female motorcycle technicians. There's women make up about the numbers vary, but like 2.1 to 2.5% of all technicians are female. But amongst motorcycle technicians, it is even sparser, further and farther between. I think she looked up and there were I think it was only 500 female motorcycle mechanics across the country. She'll probably correct me on that. Let me see if I can get her added. There she is. Hallelujah.
Oh my goodness. That was seriously ridiculous. Okay. I'm all updated and I guess ready to go.
All right. Good job. Good job. You look a world different from the way I left you about an hour ago.
I know, right? I was in such a hurry too. I was like, oh yeah, 5 o'clock is the time now that it's going to be. So I was in a rush, but yep.
That's good. Okay. I totally feel you. I was just telling everybody how I got out of the shower and I was like, oh, my neck is still dirty. Oh, the back of my arms are still dirty. I'm like, I totally missed a couple of spots because, that's what happens. I'm sure everybody can relate with that.
Yeah. Can you see me okay?
I can see you okay. Yes, okay. Absolutely. All right, my dear. So I gave a little brief introduction to who you are, but if you wouldn't mind giving a little intro.
Okay, well, I'm Zena. I am a motorcycle technician. I've been in the field about 11 years, BMW master trained, and with BMW my whole career. Have been working in a shop in New Hampshire that does everything. So vintage to race bikes to all the normal stuff. And love teaching. We have done demos, clinics, and we've done classes at the dealership too that I was very involved in. And yeah, I guess that's pretty much the basics.
Nice.
Oh wait, and I love to travel on my motorcycle.
That's right. You've been kind of doing the nomad thing for how long now?
I started technically August. I took off on a cross-country motorcycle trip. Cruising around, visiting friends and family that I could. Obviously during COVID, that was a little more challenging. And stopping at some really amazing, beautiful places, staying mostly in cabins if I wasn't with somebody that I knew, and just trying to soak it all in and enjoy some life.
Yeah. So I've got to ask this question. Because we had another awesome woman on about, a couple of months ago who does the full-time RVing. You met her, Adrienne. And there's so many people who talk about, oh, I'd love to go live that life. I'd love to go be out on the road and just traveling the country. And then talking to Adrienne, after a while, it gets kind of old and you kind of want a home base. And there's the romanticness of it, I guess, starts to wear off. So where in that journey do you feel like you are? Are you still yes, I love the nomad life? Or you're eh?
It is tough. It's for sure tough. And on a motorcycle, you're very limited with space, things you can have with you. And accommodations have to be something, especially weather changing and all that stuff. So it's definitely tough on a bike, but I loved it, and I do love it. I like to have a home base where I can keep stuff and whatever, but I'm still in that stage where I just want to get on my bike and go and just go and not have necessarily a set destination or a time frame or whatever, and just enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. Somebody asked what kind of bike you have. Since you're a BMW technician, what kind of bike do you have?
I do not have a BMW. I have a Harley Davidson. Yep. I actually have a 1200 Sportster, but it does not look really like a Sportster anymore. It is all decked out for traveling. I have ammo can, side bags. I have a fairing put on and a radio, bigger tank.
Be fancy.
Yeah, all the stuff.
Okay, so I have to ask, and I've been meaning to ask this for a while. Why? Why a Harley if you're a BMW tech?
Well, I did grow up in Wisconsin, and
Okay.
Wisconsin is the home of Harley. So I guess I grew up around it, and it's just always been more my style, like the cruising, just like taking it easy, sightseeing, traveling, cruising. Not, I like dirt bikes, but that's not my like favorite thing. Like, so adventure bikes, dirt bikes, I would love to have them if I had multiples and I could just like, hop on it and go play, but it's not like for everyday use. I want my cruiser. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. So then why? So we've talked about this a little bit, but I want to kind of revisit it a little bit because we both went through the BMW STEP program. If Harley is kind of more in your blood, why did you wind up going to the BMW program to pursue that as your specialty as a technician?
Yeah. So when I went to school, I knew, as it is to say, I knew I was going to have to take more, learn more, get as much knowledge and experience as I could to come out and find like a good job being a woman in the field. I wanted as much advantage as I could get. So I took Harley regular, early model because I love vintage stuff, the BMW and Honda. I was in school for almost 2 years, which is extra long for the motorcycle program, taking all of that. And all of them were great. Honda's not really my thing, but it was good to do that. And we did like four-wheelers and jet skis and touched on that stuff too, which was cool. The Harley program was really good. And then as I started like getting further along in school, I realized like certain brands obviously were more advanced, especially like, 12 years ago or whatever. And just had more variety of things that I would learn and be exposed to and experience. And I really wanted to be like at the top of the food chain, like get as much of the high end everything that I could get. And it just seemed that like BMW was more that way, just more electronically advanced, or even it maybe not more advanced, but just different. And so like all the other brands, they still hadn't like changed over to some of the electronics they have now, which are closer to the BMW stuff. But, it was all just basic wiring, which is still hard to learn and like pick up on too. But all the control units that BMW has and like all of that stuff, like it's just another step up. And then right around the time that I was graduating and starting to kind of like poke at shops and like search around for what I really wanted to do and where I wanted to go, BMW came out with the motorcycle STEP program. And so I got recommended for it by my instructors and went through the whole process to try to get into that and got accepted into that. And so that was the route I ended up with.
All right. I always find the STEP program and all the rest of that stuff kind of interesting, and the whole like way that people get there. Like I think you and I are kind of similar in that sense. Like I didn't pick BMW because I loved BMW. I learned to love BMW, but it was that kind of idea of I want to learn on the hardest. I want to learn on the most challenging, and then everything else feels easy after that. Whereas like I feel like so many people who start out on domestic cars, they're like, "Ooh, European, they're so complicated, they're so hard." And because that's what I cut my teeth on, it doesn't feel difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like domestics feel difficult for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I'd probably seen one, but I don't like have any like memories of actually like knowing what a BMW motorcycle looked like before I went to school, actually.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, I knew nothing. I knew nothing really. Like I knew like very, very little about BMWs, but learned a ton because they beat all of that stuff into your head.
Yes.
So you were early on in the STEP program for motorcycles starting, right? You
I was
were
in the first one, the very
the
first STEP
very
program.
first.
Yep.
All right. So you were the
Yeah.
first woman to go through the STEP program too then.
I think that I am the only woman that's been through the STEP program.
Still,
I'm pretty
really
sure.
interesting. Are they still
Yeah.
they're still doing it, yeah?
They last I knew they were obviously they didn't do it like last year, I think. But I'd asked some of my old instructors if they were still doing it, and they said yes. So
Okay.
I think so.
Very cool. Do you, because I get this question a lot from students, and I don't know, or young people, I don't know if it's the same on the motorcycle side, so I'm kind of curious, like, is it worth going to trade school? Is it worth going to these like graduate programs as they call them, like the STEP program or the Honda program or whatever it is? What's your take on that?
For me, it absolutely was. You just so our the motorcycle step program it covered like all the dealer training that you would get over like a huge amount of time, because you go into the dealership, like you go when they can send you, as they can send you, if they send you, if they're a big enough shop that they can like afford to send you and lose you for the time that you need to be gone for class, all that stuff. So when I came out of the step program, I had all of the training already like taken care of. So I just needed the experience and time experience, and then I was master trained like basically right off the bat. So it saved it saves time. It helped out for sure, as far as like shops that want, and it was a new program, so a lot of the shops weren't super familiar and aware of like how it was working and like what kind of training we would come out with and stuff like that. But it definitely like gave an edge and just more familiarity with like the brand and the bikes and bigger jobs, because like in school you learn the basic stuff. In dealer training, you're going into gearboxes and engines and more detailed stuff than you would do just in regular school. So it just really gives you better understanding, knowledge, experience to start your actual career with, and that
Yeah.
was great.
Yeah. I agree
I
with
still
that
felt like
completely.
I had like no experience though. I still went in and I was like, am I gonna be okay? Could I do this?
Yes. No, I totally agree with that. Like, I knew so little going into tech school. It was a thing that I wanted to do, but I didn't know a whole heck of a lot. So, like, basic tech school, it was like the undergrad. It was like you get a little smattering of everything, and then you go into these graduate programs, and it's super intensive. And then you go out in the real world, and you've got all these certificates that say that you know stuff,
Yeah.
but you haven't actually done a heck of a lot of it. So, yeah. How long have you been in the industry now?
I graduated in 2009 and went to my first shop right away, so 11-ish
Okay,
years.
nice. And what made you decide to go to motorcycle mechanic school to begin with? Were you
Um,
always into it, or what was that like?
I had always liked to take things apart and put them back together. I didn't really grow up with a father figure in the house, so like anything I wanted to mess with, it was like on me to do. And we would get, I don't know, we had like crappy old radios and things, and they would break, and I would just take them apart and try and fix them. I don't even remember if I ever actually fixed any of them. Um, but I always just like to like know how things work and like the mechanicals, of things. So that was always like a thing when I was a kid, and then totally just different route growing up. I was going to go to school to college for music, didn't do that, and decided I didn't want to be a music teacher. So I was like, well, that's not really a career I want. So I just was working. I worked at Starbucks. Actually, I was manager at Starbucks, and I was just like working away, trying to wait until I was like, someday I'm going to figure it out. Someday there's something's going to come along, and it's going to be like, it's just going to hit me. And so I had a friend actually whose brother, she told me, was thinking about going to the motorcycle school. I'd never heard of it, knew nothing about it. And I was like, oh, really? That sounds super cool. And so like within a week I had looked into it, and within probably the month I was signed up and like raring to go. So
Interesting.
it's just like,
Is
it was just one of those things. Like as soon as I heard it and looked into it, I was like, that's it. That's what I've been waiting for. So, you know,
Do you
it's
feel
worked
like
out
when
so
you
far.
were younger, what's that?
That it's worked out so far.
Right? So far, so good. Do you feel like when you were younger, it was ever even like available to you as an option? Like, were you exposed to it ever as a kid? Like, this is something that you could do feasibly?
No, I mean, nothing. And my mom was always amazing about that. Like, she would never have, like, she would encourage me to do anything that I wanted to do. Absolutely, like, anything. And there wasn't a lot of any of it around. Like, my high school had a shop class, but like, I barely even knew that there was a shop class at the school. I took a drafting class. That was probably the closest thing to anything mechanical that I did, like high school wise. But there weren't any women in the shop class at my high school. There was never any like exposure from it really or anything like that. And I didn't grow up around like families of people that did it either. So it was just like, I don't know, one of those things.
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting. Like, do you, because I don't have a very dissimilar story to that, right? Like, it wasn't something I was exposed to at all. Like, do you feel like if you'd been exposed younger, you would have pursued it earlier?
It's a possibility, but who's to say, you know?
Right? Came at the right time.
Yeah.
I just think it's so interesting. Like, there's so many career opportunities that our kids aren't even like hearing about. And I don't mean our kids like we have children, but like, do you know what I mean? The children of
Yeah.
our world, that aren't even being exposed to know if it's something that they'd be interested in. Like, you're an amazing technician. Had you never had that moment where someone was like, "Hey, I'm going to do this thing," and it sparked that interest in you, like, what a loss that would have been, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And
if
I didn't know anybody, any other women that worked on motorcycles. I knew a few that rode their own motorcycle, but most of the ones I knew even didn't do that. Most of them rode with their husband on the back, and they never like messed with the bikes. They didn't do any of that. And so, people were like, "You're going to go do what?" I've never heard of that. I'm like, good. You have now.
Were you always the kid, the young adult who just went their own path regardless of what people thought, or was that experience different for you?
I think I pretty much always have been just a little different for sure. I never like was one of those kids that fit into like a specific group in high school. Like I had friends from like all the different groups and walks of life. And I've always really liked it that way. Yeah. I'm okay being the weird one.
Right. Well, so that begs the question, because I feel like I talk to women all the time, and you've been meeting a lot of the ladies who come in on the build, and everybody's got their own different stories of how they came up in the industry, but a lot of them face a ton of the negativity when they're coming in, and a lot of people who look at them funny, question what they're doing, like, why would you want to do that? How is it, or what has been your coping mechanism, or like, what do you think it is in you that has allowed you to let that not affect you and bother you, and still be able to go and do what it is you love regardless of what other people think?
A big part of it is always like when somebody tells you that you can't do something, you want to do it even more. So that definitely ties in. And when I've come across situations with like customers or people that maybe are just unsure because you're a girl, or like outrightly like doubting your abilities or whatever, like it like I want to do an even better job, like, and just show them that what their way of thinking is not right. It's just not the way that it is or has to be. And that, at least for me, I can prove that I'm not just a girl that should be wearing a dress, doing whatever, um, and that, I can hold my own and, do as well or better than some of the, men that are around me and in my industry.
Did you experience a lot of folks not being
Um,
cool with you, either as coworkers or as customers?
Not too much. I've had really great, both the shops that I have worked at, I've had great owners and employees at those shops. Very supportive, very encouraging. Really like a lot of teamwork all the way around all the time. And so there's been a few instances with customers, and I'm sure there's been more that I don't even know about. But again, at both places, were really good to just like catch it with the customer right away. And just, you know, be like, all of our technicians are trained. Like, and you know, there have been times when we didn't all have master certification, but I was always one of the masters in the shop. And they'd be like, you know, she's master trained, like, you know, and we just take the work and we dispatch it to whoever's ready. You know, they try to like
neutralize it,
like buffer it so that
yeah,
it's not like specifically your job's going to go to the girl, but like maybe now it is, but
right. Yeah, well, it's like it neutralizes it, like it isn't about her gender.
right, like all of our technicians are fully capable to do the job that your bike requires, so it shouldn't matter who works on them. And I don't know what other stuff that like that end has had to deal with. I've heard that there have been a few, but they never like really relay it all to me.
Yeah.
Just because they didn't want me to have to like deal with it because it's stupid and pointless, and you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awesome that you were able to find good shops and places that were supportive, because I feel like that makes such a world of difference. And finding a good shop, finding a shop that's going to support you and not make it an issue.
Yeah.
In your experience, do you find the motorcycle community, but we talked about this the other day, right? Like how many female motorcycle technicians there are, and like what was the number you found?
When we looked it up, it was like 500, and it said it was like 5%. So there's like 20-ish thousand motorcycle technicians in general in the country, and like 500 of them are women.
That's crazy to me. Like that's an insanely small number. Although it's interesting that the percentage is higher than it is for auto mechanics, but I guess there's just so much fewer. I don't know what the proper grammar of that is. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say.
Sure do.
Far fewer. Have you been able to meet with or work with any other female motorcycle technicians?
I have had one, and she was actually the first girl to go through MMI Phoenix BMW program, because it was a relatively new program when I went through it at the school level. And she was the first girl in the first class at MMI, and then she ended up working at the dealership, which was my second dealership that I went to. Okay. So when I started there, she was there. Nice. So that was super cool. She's amazing. She went on to do other things, but like for a couple of years, we got to work in the shop together, and like that's pretty rare and pretty amazing. So I definitely treasure that time that I had, and it's unique. Like most other women in the industry aren't going to get to work with another woman in the industry in their own shop, especially unless like you have your own. And
right. Has that ever been a dream of yours, to open up your own shop?
It hasn't really. I really want to teach and do like along that line. It would be very cool to work in a whole shop full of women and to like own that and run that and be a part of that. But I have a hard time with like settling down, obviously. I've been traveling around. So like picking a spot that I know that like I want to live out the rest of my life, basically, you know, because it's a big commitment.
Yeah.
Has not really been a thing for me. So I think that's the biggest thing that's kept me from that side of it.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, it's a totally different thing. I'll just travel around
and find all of you guys.
Right? We're okay with that too. Yeah. No, it is. I mean, and I think that's cool. You hear so much from technicians that that's what they want to do, right? Like they want to open up their own shop one day, whether it's motorcycle, car, whatever, collision side, like they all like want to open up their own place sometime at some point. And it's so different. Owning a shop is so different than doing the thing that you love to do. So it's kind of refreshing to hear, like, no, I just like doing the thing that I like doing. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I would have a really hard time. And I've had some times in the past with injuries and stuff where I've had to be out of the shop and in a different part of the dealership. And it's still great to be in the dealership and being a part of things, but it's so hard to not be in the
Yeah,
shop, actually hands-on. Like, it just kills me. All I want to do is go back in the shop and play with everything and get dirty. So
I can totally relate. There were times at my shop because I didn't get to wrench on cars that much when I had my general repair shop, and I would be like just itching to get my hands on tools, and I would walk out into the shop and my shop foreman would be like, you need to fix something, don't you? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, somebody give her some tools so she can fix
mm-hmm.
something, please. So she stops bothering us out in the shop.
Yep.
Somebody just commented, and I just have to pass on the compliment. I don't know who this is, but you probably do. Somebody, Bill 9738, said she would be the #1 technician if there was ever a contest.
Uh-huh.
So you've got some fans out there.
I love my fans.
So
I think
now,
there's a few on there.
What's that?
I think there's been a few names pop through that I know. So
That you recognize?
yeah,
So the shop that you worked at most recently was also a dealership, right?
yeah,
But you worked on vintage motorcycles as well. Is that pretty typical for motorcycle dealerships?
it is very untypical for motorcycle
Oh,
dealerships.
okay.
Most dealerships don't like to work on anything that's like 15 years old or something. I'm not sure exactly
Where the cutoff?
Some are better than others, like BMW. There are a few throughout the country that do vintage stuff. More parts are available, more stuff is available. The BMW world is very like restoration, collector, all that kind of stuff. So it just seems like there's just more of it in that community. So there's more of it, like more dealerships that do it.
Okay.
And that's like my favorite thing. So I love all of that stuff, and am very lucky and blessed that I found a shop that like within less than 6 months. I don't even know how long it was I was there before I had my hands on my first vintage anything,
Awesome.
and just loved it and grabbed it right from the start. So
Is it I mean, I would assume it's a very different experience than working on newer bikes.
oh, it's very different. Yeah, yeah. From every aspect of it is different. Everything. I mean, the electrical obviously is way simpler, but like the bikes, they have like their own personality and energy, and like it's like its own person, and they're all finicky. They each have like mood swings. I'm telling you, like something will want to work one day, or like, for 20 minutes, and then like it won't work for you the next time you like try to test it or try to do it or something. Like, it can be a nightmare, and a lot of people don't like to work on them, but I love that challenge and that puzzle. Like, it's all the same basic things. You just got to figure out why one thing is being finicky, or like, and a lot of times it's like bad wiring or worn out wiring, or just things and like I don't know, just lots of things. But it's simpler, but also like really takes somebody that is into it, because you really have to like have a feel for it, have the interest in it to like get it down good, I think.
So I'm so curious about this at the dealership, like, because as dealer technicians, we're paid flat rate. Did that apply to the vintage bikes too?
It does, or it did at our shop, because we
Interesting.
figured out like times that so it's not based on like, so most of the flat rate times obviously are based on like times from the company, or
Right.
like from however they figure it out. So the vintage stuff doesn't have that. So we actually had a technician, an older man, super amazing, who'd been doing it for years, I think 20 or maybe more years. And so I believe that they worked with him to set the times, like,
Oh, wow.
how long should this take? And I don't know if he had times like based on like things from years ago or not that also tied into that. But so we did have flat rate times for, and they have flat rate times for the different jobs on the vintage stuff. But that being said, every vintage bike that comes through, you have to explain to them that like there's going to be issues, there's going to be stuff. You just have to like communicate it, because you could go after one thing and it could be this long is how long it's supposed to take, and then you start digging into it and you find, you know, a whole bunch of other things, and then all of a sudden this 2-hour job became a 5-hour job on the one thing, you know. So
that never happens. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, and the newer bikes, like, that happens way less often. The older bikes, just because, you know, you do have to be more careful and cautious than.
Well, yeah, if you look at it funny, stuff breaks. Like,
yeah, okay. Yep.
But you still love working on them more than the newer stuff, huh?
I do, yeah. I don't know, my heart is there. You know, like some stuff you just like really love, and that's always been something I really love to do. Yeah, I had one of the old types of BMWs is called a /2. Basically, there's like a few of them that fall into that era, and that was probably the ones I did the most. And we had a lady that worked at the shop years ago, and she started calling me the /2 queen, because I would just like every time they came in, like just get so excited and try to grab them all and work on them all.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So as far as like crossover knowledge, I was explaining to everybody a little bit earlier, and I'll say again that you've been hanging out at Girl Gang Garage quite a bit and working on the Volvo, but like we've also been doing some mechanical jobs on cars, not necessarily motorcycles. How like much of a corollary do you find? Do you find it easy to work on cars, having learned so much about motorcycles, or they still feel like a little bit of a foreign beast? Like, what's that? How does that?
Like the first bunch of years I was working on stuff, I was like, no, I wouldn't say terrified, but I really didn't want to work on cars. I'm like, I don't know anything about them. I understand, like in my head, like I knew that it was, you know, not much different, but it's still like transferring that to like how my brain works with the machine. I was like, I'm just like, it's intimidating because I don't really know. And it's got extra things and it's so much bigger. And I have to go under a hood or under the car instead of like stand next to it and take off panels. Like, I don't know. But like the more experience I got as a technician, the less intimidating, I guess, that side of things got for me. And then I, a couple of years back, actually worked at a friend of mine's automotive shop for, I don't know, 8 months or something like that.
Okay.
So got a little bit of hands-on experience, and like as soon as I was like doing it, I was like, all right, I don't know what was wrong with me. Like I know all this stuff. Like it's not, you know, don't know it all, but like it's all familiar. Right. I can do this, no problem. Like
yeah, it's the same parts and pieces. Yeah. And one thing that's kind of struck me about you in working with you on the Volvo, like that you just kind of dive headfirst into stuff, and nothing stops you or intimidates you. Like, do you feel like that experience of working on cars and realizing that they weren't as intimidating as you thought they were has contributed to your like just diving into stuff the way you do?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say that's part of it. And I think that I have a tendency to do that in general. Like if there's something I want to learn or something that I'm interested in, I probably have a tendency to like just jump in and just go for it, like, and try it. Like, I don't know. I probably can't think of anything right now off the top of my head, but
that's okay. That's all right.
Yeah, just like why the more hesitant you are, like the more I feel like you're setting yourself up to fail. Like try it, do it, go straight in and just give it everything you've got. And hopefully you know, you'll find out that you will pick it up or that you won't, you know. I guess that's how I think about it.
How do you feel about the metalwork stuff that you've been learning? Because you've been doing a ton of that.
Yeah, it's super cool. Obviously, that's not something that we do on motorcycles, and it's pretty much obviously not something you do in any normal dealership. So getting my hands on that has been very fun. The welding, obviously learning to weld has been great. We've got the shrinker stretcher there that we've been using, and that's super fun. The English wheel, I love that. Shaping metal, just super cool. And the hammer and dolly, like just seeing how, like I've always had this like idea, like working around the bikes and the metal and the fenders and stuff, like how the metal all works, but like actually putting it into action with your own hands and seeing how it moves and what you do to manipulate it. And it's pretty cool to learn all that stuff and get a feel for it, you know?
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because I get to watch like all these different women come through, and some come in with confidence, some come in like scared of all of it, right? And it's a different mindset. And I'm curious, like if there's, how do we encourage that? Like how do we get young kids in general being able to come at things from the perspective that I've seen you do and so many other, women that we've worked with on the build do, where they come in and they're like, I don't know how this works, but I'm not afraid to try it. And I'm not afraid to fail. And I'm not afraid to make a fool of myself. Like, how do we teach that? Like,
so it's funny. In the very beginning of working in shops, that was not me. I was nervous. I didn't want to fail. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to mess something up. So there was definitely times when I was like nervous to take on a new job or a bike I hadn't worked on before, and all of that. And I remember the general manager at my store in New Hampshire, he was like, you got this. You're going to be just fine. He's like, you know what you're doing. And I was like, but I'm still like scared of it. Like, he's like, no, just get over there and work. And like, that's pretty much like what you have to do in your head is you're just like, I got to do this. Like the only way I'm going to learn it, the only way I'm going to, get confidence doing this and get over that is by doing it. And so you just got to like push through it and go and do it. And try to have fun with it along the way.
The way, yeah. No, I agree with you. I feel like so much of it is experience and time, and that's a hard thing to communicate to others. Like it does get better. Like so, for those of you that are out there, like just beginning in your career path, like we've all been there. We all started out scared, and the more you do, I think the more confident you become, and the less like the new stuff scares you because you already know you can figure out whatever, right?
Yep.
No.
And then we still have days that like get us and we're like, should I really be doing this? I can't figure this out. And then like how you step away, you come back and half an hour later, you're like, oh, what was that? Like, this is no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we just had to share with everybody who's watching, like at the shop, we had a great learning experience. As one of my mentors used to call it, was an AFGI, another fucking growth experience.
I like that.
And I mean, it was one of those situations that was, an unfortunate thing. However, it happens. It happens to the best of us. And it became this really interesting conversation that we wound up having with all of the different women that were in the shop, all of the women who had years of experience, kind of sharing all of their biggest F-ups. Yep. And it's so comforting. It feels weird to say that, right? Like it's comforting to hear that you're not the only one that messes up.
People don't like to talk about it. They don't want to talk about the time that, they broke a bolt or they put something on backwards or, like whatever it is. They don't want to talk about the mess ups because they don't, like, I guess we all still have that, like, you don't want people to look at you like you don't know what you're doing or, you made a stupid mistake. Why would you make this mistake after you've been doing it for so many years? But we all make mistakes at all points in time. Like it just happens, you're having a bad day or your brain's on something else or you're going too fast or whatever it is,
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, this may be a totally stereotypical comment, but I feel like women in particular, because we are our minority in the industry, like we tend to be even harder on ourselves when we mess up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to teach that lesson other than just through time and experience, but
Yeah, and part of it is still, I think that we really feel that we have to hold, and not that we shouldn't, but we have to hold ourselves up to this like crazy high standard because we do have to prove ourselves. And in a lot of shops, in a lot of situations, like we still do have to prove ourselves more than maybe the guy next to us has to, because
yeah.
people do still look at us with that look like, are they capable? Why are they doing this? You know?
Hmm. So I think we talk a lot about like the obvious stuff, the obvious limiters to attracting and keeping more women in the trades. Because I think there's a lot of interest, right? Like I hear from a lot of women and girls that this is something that they would be interested in had they been exposed to it, or
Yeah.
um, that they want to try it, but they've been discouraged from it. So aside from that, like big obvious elephant in the room, what do you feel like are the biggest barriers for women getting into the industry, and like what are the big things that we need to fix, or things that you experienced more that were kind of like the signs that said you're not really welcome here?
I think I think more exposure would be great. You know, like I said, I had never seen another female motorcycle mechanic or car mechanic probably, and had no idea if there would even be any at the school that I went
Right.
to when I went. Um, and didn't even know about the school. Didn't even know something like that was an option, let alone like an option for me, like just in general. I know they're getting better about that nowadays with like local programs in schools and offering, you know, like technical stuff. But I
Yeah.
don't know, like, is that like actually made an offer to the girls at the schools as well? Or, you
Right.
know, is it a general student thing or is it more geared towards the boys? Like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But something like that maybe, and just more like, hey, like anybody can do this. Everybody should do this. Um, like, and these are options for everybody. Like the trades, I think, are so important. Like not just like mechanical stuff or auto body or like that stuff, but even like carpentry.
Yeah.
You know, electrician, like all that stuff. Like it. That's really what keeps our world running, right? Like so, those jobs can be done by anybody, and I think that that is still a thing that like is not really like made, you know, like a thing. Like it's really more geared towards males than
Yeah.
females. And I think lots of females would be more interested in it if they really thought it was something attainable for them. But I think a lot don't even feel like, why should I even try? Because I'm never going to get a job, or I'm not going to make as much, or
Right.
they're going to make me do the crap stuff or whatever. And I think that's a lot of the mindset. And I'm not really sure how to change that. But
Yeah. Oh, you and I had a conversation a while ago about kind of some of the little things that kind of are barriers, even though they don't seem like they should be, really. Like, but it's the stuff that sounds trivial when we talk about it. Like you and I went off for like an hour about uniforms, right? Like
yeah,
it seems so silly, but
right.
how huge that is, and how like when you and I came up so many years ago, right? Like there weren't women's uniforms.
Nope, nothing. It's terrible. Like I have a hard enough time finding clothes that fit me in general, let alone work clothes. So, you know, and like it like and I always felt so stupid in my shop being like, I need something in a women's, like, can we do that? Is that possible? You know, and like everybody like, you can't just wear the men's size. Like, I don't get it. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like it just doesn't fit right. Like I feel like I'm wearing this uniform. Everybody else looks nice in it. And I look like a slob because it's poofy and it's baggy and the pants are big and like that I'm like,
And the shirt goes down to my knees.
I don't feel professional in the way that I should look, especially standing next to my fellow technicians. Like it just, and it is, that's part of the confidence thing as well, I think, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it always feels I've had so many of these conversations with women, and it feels so silly saying that,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yep.
that the fact that they didn't have women's uniforms made us feel bad, but it does, right? Like it's hard to to take yourself seriously and have confidence when you don't have when you're wearing an unsafe uniform, you don't look good, you don't feel good, you look
Yes.
different, you look like the oddball, right?
Right.
Like there's so much to it. But
Yeah.
it's exciting to see kind of how much is changing with that. Like cute steel-toed boots. Oh my God. Like what a concept. Like, that's an amazing thing that like didn't exist.
We're all of us are gonna have a pair of those, in the next month or so.
Yes, absolutely. Like there's more and more stuff coming out for women specifically, and that's really exciting to see. Do you feel like in your time in the industry that you've seen an improvement? Have you seen a difference in what you experienced from the beginning to what you're experiencing now and what you see young people dealing with?
And I haven't I unfortunately a lot of the stories I'm hearing now are from the girls coming through at Girl Gang Garage. And so I guess there's just been a span of time where I've just been working and doing my thing, and I haven't had exposure with other women in the industry. And I don't know that it's changed a ton or progressed a ton, but I don't really know that it hasn't either.
Hmm.
Because I've just kind of been just working,
Doing
and,
your
and
thing.
I personally, thank goodness for my amazing shop that I was at, never had to really deal with much of it. So but the stories that I'm hearing from the girls, it does seem like there's a lot more out there now, that they are feeling a little bit more comfortable going after some of these professions and
Yeah.
dreams and things, or even just the ones that want to mess with their own stuff in their own garage. They're like, all right, I can do this. I've seen this other girl doing stuff, or I can find this girl on YouTube doing this, or my friend works on stuff.
Yeah.
I think there's more of it, but there's definitely still that stereotype and the bad side of it going on as well. And I think that, I don't know if that will ever really totally go away, but I think it just takes
I
time
hope
for that
so.
to change. Yeah, I know. I think we got to get our numbers up for that to change.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree. I feel hopeful for future generations, right?
I do too.
Like I feel like change happens generationally. So like all the work that we're doing and visibility that we're doing and just like people being able to see women technicians like being successful and professional and accomplished and rocking it. Like we're not going to see the effects of that
Yeah,
until the next generation grows up. And
yeah.
that's the hard part.
Someday when we retire, we're gonna be like, oh, finally.
Right. Totally. So for somebody coming up now, good how many years? I can't math. 2009 to 2021, however many years, 11 years, 12 years. I'm
12 years.
horrible at math.
12 years.
This is why I'm not allowed to math. Um, there's a lot of things I'm good at. Math is not one of them. So what would be your words of wisdom with all of that experience that you have and all of that time that you've put in? There's a young girl out there, or even a young boy out there who would love to do what you're doing and have done in your career. What do you say to them?
You just got to go for it. If you feel passionate about it or about anything, go for it. Get the training, get the schooling, get some experience, whatever it is, because maybe school's not available. Find a shop, talk to some people, meet some people. Just go after your dreams, in general, and don't let anybody discourage you from that. And just work hard, be professional, and prove yourself to yourself first of all, and then the rest of the world will see that and follow suit. So
I like that.
yeah.
Very true. Very wise. All right, my dear. So we have a few minutes left before our hour is up. Um, I know you're kind of in this like transition place right now. You've been living nomadically. What are your, do we have an idea of what your future goals and things that you want to tackle and take on are?
I mean, there might be some interest in a few things, but nothing is quite set in stone yet.
Okay.
And for the moment, I'm really enjoying being at the garage with Girl Gang Garage and just getting that experience in, and really just branching out with everybody and taking it all in. And I don't know, we'll see what the future holds.
Okay. All right. I think that's fair. All right. Well, then I think we shall wrap this up with our few minutes left to go before the Instagram cuts us off.
All right.
I appreciate so much you joining and hanging out with me for an hour, especially after we hung out together for like 7 hours earlier today, fixing that
No
darn
problem.
Volkswagen. And thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate you. And it's so great to have you as part of the Girl Gang Garage and have your involvement in this build and all of your help and support. And I'm grateful that you got to share your story with everybody. And I'm grateful for everybody out there in the world who joined in on this and hung out with us for this hour. We've got all of the past Trades Lady Happy Hours are all in my IGTV. So you can check them all out there. We've met with and hung out with a ton of really, really phenomenal women in all sorts of different positions all throughout the industry. So definitely check those out. This one will live there too. And make sure you tune back in next week for another awesome installation of Happy Hour. And you'll just have to wait and see who that's going to be with. But for now, thank you, Zena. And thank you, everybody. And have a fantastic rest of your week.
And thank you for the experience and everything that you do for women and having your garage and all of it. It's amazing. And I wouldn't be here on this live with you if you didn't do that. So
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Together we rise.
that's right.
All right, girl. Be good. Thank you guys. Have a great night.